Welcome to Finding Your Balance, a mental health podcast. My name is Tiffani Fritzsche. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm joined with my friend Kirk Fasshauer, licensed clinical social worker.
Good morning.
If this is your first time with us, welcome. We've had several conversations over the past few episodes about mental health and mental illness, and today we're jumping into what does it look like actually getting started with therapy.
What we want to do is try to understand what therapy is and isn't, because there's also that. To learn what happens in the first few sessions, I think, is a good thing to explore. And, after the first few sessions, well, then what? And that's going to depend on what comes out of that. And then maybe give you some advice on how to make it a little more effective for you, So with therapy, I know that part of my educational process was to go to therapy and to experience what that was like. I was nervous at first because I wasn't sure what I would talk about and what it would be like. 10 sessions later, I was like, man, I had a lot to talk about. And that was partially to learn about myself in that process and to understand the process of therapy, because it's a trade. We were learning what that looks like. But what therapy is, it's supposed to be a safe place. So if you're going to a session, because nowadays we also have therapy that takes place in other environments, not just a therapeutic office. Although that's the traditional look, and that is still the most popular way to get therapy. But therapy is supposed to be a safe, confidential space where somebody can explore their emotions and their thoughts. And again, we call it creating that safe psychological space for people to open up and talk about anything they wish to, or things that they've agreed to with the therapist.
Well, so not to cut you off, whenever I'm talking to interns or to new therapists, a lot of times I say something like this: therapy is not for giving advice, right? It's not for judgment. It's a judgment-free zone. And so I tell new interns and new therapists that it's a safe space to where your client can come in and they can dump out all their content, and you teach them how to process that content. There's always going to be trauma and drama in our life because we're dealing with imperfect people.
Right.
That's just what life is. And so if you can have a safe space to where you can dump out the content and you can learn how to process it, you learn that no matter what comes your way, you'll develop those skills to navigate, because at some point, our hope as a counselor is to work ourselves out of a job.
Right.
We want to teach you those skills. And so if I equip you with those skills, but coming from a neutral place to where this is not my trauma, this is not my drama, I can look at it with a clear lens and an objective lens, and it teaches you those skills. And that's really hard. And it's also not the same as advice.
Exactly. And it's not about fixing. I think people come in and say, well, I'll get fixed. And no, it's not. Therapy isn't about fixing. It's about exploring, understanding, and learning new ways of coping and connecting with yourself primarily, or with others. It depends on what's going on there. They're not there to judge. The therapist is not there to judge, so it's very non-judgmental. And it's a partnership on, creating a plan for your emotional wellness or your mental wellness.
Well, and that idea of a partnership, I think of the principle of shared governance. We're in this together. And so many times I am absolutely the person that will go to the doctor, and the doctor will say, well, are you exercising? Are you drinking water? You should be doing these things. And I'll say, yes. And then I leave the appointment and I don't do those things at all. And so I think the idea behind shared governance is this is your life, right?
Right, exactly. And, it's funny you say something like that, Tiffani, because I would tell folks that, in the therapy session, you can sit there and lie all you want, but who are you lying to? You're not lying to me. It doesn't make a difference to me one way or the other. This is about your growth,
right?
Not my growth. I mean, I like to think I'm still growing, but, and learning. I think that's a lifelong process. But folks that come into the therapy sessions trying to make it sound better than it is and things like this are not helpful to them. And I do call people on that when I kind of get a sense that they're not being totally truthful. That gentle confrontation, that gentle challenge that we learn to provide for folks. Again, non-judgmental. It's a collaborative effort, and it's what is it you want to get out of this if you're not going to be truthful in these sessions, because, again, you're not lying to me. You're lying to yourself.
Well, and jumping back to kind of the front of our conversation, how do you get started with therapy? A lot of it depends on really, payment. So a lot of people, they have the opportunity to do employment assistance through their employer. So they can call a number and they can get connected to a therapist that way. A lot of times you go into your health insurance benefits and you see who's in network and you make a phone call. Or there are a lot of private providers who you can do self-pay. So depending on what you're capable of doing, what you're able to do, a lot of parents will call me or individuals will call and say, hey, I think that I need counseling. I just don't know how to get started.
Right.
And so at a lot of community mental health agencies like ours at Peace River Center, we have an entire department called Care Coordination, and they're dedicated to coordinating your care, getting you connected to the right resources. So you may say, I don't even know where to start.
Right.
That's a good place to start, and they can help make sure. And if the agency that you call is not the right fit for you, they can oftentimes connect you to another provider that might be a better fit. So once you get that appointment, what happens at that first appointment?
Right. Well, even before that, I think people need to think about what is their insurance, what will it cover if you've got insurance. If you don't have insurance, there are options out there for you as well. So explore what those things might be available to you and have access to. You mentioned the Employee Assistance Program, EAP. I know some people have mixed feelings about utilizing employee assistance programs because they feel like their employer is going to know everything. Again, you really need to check to make sure, is it set up in a way that it is confidential? They are. They don't share names or information. You are a number. Basically, if I had 3 people coming in to talk about, financial issues, 3 people came in, it says 3 financial issues and things like that. So it's, and you want to go in prepared to some degree on what you want to talk about. Yeah. So I really encourage folks when they're making that step to come into therapy to write some stuff down. What is it you want to talk about? What is it you want to explore? And have those discussions. So start that process by jotting it down, and come in with that sheet of paper. Some people utilize Google and try to figure out what's going on there as far as, hey, it's a good place to start, good place to get an outline and ask some questions. Write it down. Come in with a small list and start the process that way. It'll also ease your nerves and anxiety going into therapy because you're meeting a person for the first time. I also want to share with people that, it is important to connect with the person you're going to do therapy with. And I mean the person going in connecting with the therapist. Because really the magic of therapy is, the connection that 2 people make, that partnership. And I've had people tell me, well, that stuff doesn't work, and I'm not going into therapy because that's BS. And it's like, well, hold on. How many people did you go see? I saw 1 counselor and that didn't work out. And it's like, 1 counselor? Okay. Well, do you connect with everybody you meet in life? And often the answer is, no, I don't connect with everybody. Okay. That's an important piece to therapy is your ability to connect with that person. Now, as a therapist, you and I have learned some skills to help that connection along and make it so that people do feel safe and do feel comfortable with us. But we don't connect with everybody, even knowing some ways to do that. And so I want people to understand that if you don't connect with that one person, try somebody else.
Yeah.
Keep exploring until you find somebody. The number I usually give out when I'm giving talks on this is, try 5 different therapists. If you can't connect with 1 in 5, then you probably got another issue that really needs to be explored. So I encourage folks to seek out that person you're going to feel comfortable with, because it's about self-exploration. You're going to want to share some stuff that is going to help you. Now, again, therapy isn't about quick fixes. It's not about, lots of times, it's not about instant relief. Mm-hmm. Even in the crisis work we do, it's a Band-Aid to help kind of ease some things. There's some relief. I don't know if it's instant, but there's some relief. And it's not about, like you mentioned, Tiffani, it's not about advice giving. It's not about lecturing. They're the expert. They should know everything. And we don't know everything. Right. We have tools to help us explore certain things. And I also like to tell people, you are the master of you. You know you best. I don't know you that well, so I want to learn from you. So it's a learning process, and that's usually a lot of what goes on in the beginnings of the sessions. But it's not, therapy isn't just for those folks with mental illness either, or severe mental illness. It's for everybody who wants to explore some growth. So I really encourage that. But there's some myths out there, that confuse things and prevent people from getting help. I don't know if you've heard of any of these myths. Let me throw that out for you, and let me see what you say. Therapy means I'm weak.
Oh, I've definitely heard that. Mm-hmm.
Right, I hear that very often. I can do it myself. And, there was generations before us, that was the motto. Hey, I need to do it myself. That means I'm weak if I don't. And so that's one of the things we have to consider, especially when we're doing therapy, is what generation this person's with, to kind of understand, okay, it took a lot of effort for this person who's of that generation where the thought was, I need to handle it myself, and therefore if I'm seeking out professional help, it's a sign of weakness. Yeah. So what does that tell you for this person coming in the door? Oh my God, they had so much inner conflict.
It's huge, yeah.
It's very huge. So asking for help is actually the opposite of being weak. It is courageous and shows a lot of strength to grow, and even when you're struggling with things, to come in and do that. All right, so here's another myth. Ready? Therapists just listen and nod.
Well, they do listen and nod. But they're doing more things than that.
Right. Like what? Mm-hmm. What do you see yourself doing in therapy sessions? Because I agree, we do listen a lot. We do nod a lot.
We nod a
lot. And that is, a big part of therapy is for us to listen and to not interrupt the flow of that person having that conversation. So we use a lot of evidence-based techniques and what have you, and strategies, and we talk with our clients about it. It's not just, there's some forms of therapy that are through free association, where, yes, the client just talks and we listen, and they go on and on and on, and things come out, and we observe patterns, and we say, did you notice this? Did you notice that? Those kinds of things to kind of help guide that thought process for somebody. So, we do nod and listen quite a bit. It's too expensive, and it's not worth it. Have you heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Some forms of therapy can be extremely expensive. So, again, you want to check out what are your options, and there are many options that exist. So, community mental health centers are out there that can provide, open doors for those that may not have insurance, and they're available based on various fundings. Again, you've got to explore what's available in your area. Insurances, check out your insurance. What will your insurance cover? What won't they cover? Some are very limited. They'll give you X number of sessions, and depending on the diagnosis at that point too, in the issues you're working on. And then sliding scales. Many will offer sliding scales, whether it's public or private groups doing that. All right. Here's another myth. Therapy takes forever.
Ooh. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So some therapies, it will depend. Some people can see changes right away. it does take forever. And, I know one of the struggles we see with Peace River Center is the amount of sessions people are able to have. Mm-hmm. We have some programs that are pretty intensive. We have our regular outpatient therapy, which can be once a week, every couple of weeks, once a month. And I like to talk about the fact that once a month, just think about what's going on in a person's life where once a month for almost an hour, that's got to be an impactful hour. Yeah. And it should be that opportunity for the person coming in, talking with the therapist, to be able to unload. And I like to say that we have an emotional trash can we're walking around with, and things happen in our lives, and we crumple it up, throw it in the trash can. And over time, people have a choice. They can empty out that trash can, and now they've got room to handle all those things in life. Or, what a lot of people do, is stuff it down, right? And so when they stuff it down, it kind of lays there, and I got room to deal with more. And then over time, though, that's still, that trash can is going to get built up. And if you're not emptying out that emotional trash can, you got to clean it out at some point. Yeah. And if you've left stuff way down deep in that trash can, it's going to be like trying to clean that out, right? That's why I use that as the analogy. That's therapy. That's where you're getting down and cleaning out that emotional trash can and getting down into the muck that's slimy. It's been there for a while, and you're kind of trying to move on from it and clean it out of your system. So.
Oh, that's such a good visual.
Right? Yeah.
It really is.
It's right. So it's an active and it's a structured process. It's not. It may look like it's free flowing, and most are. It should be very conversational, very relaxed. But understand that there's a lot of mental activity going on there to help somebody progress through whatever's possible. So you've built up that time to get in there. You got paperwork you got to do. There's forms that need to be filled out. I think people have this misunderstanding that the first session is going to be, I'm going to get right into it. Actually, a lot of it's administrative stuff, that first session. And I know we have a process at Peace River Center where that is what the first session is. It's more, let's deal with some of the paperwork to get that out of the way. Let's really target the issue that you want to discuss and cover. And so we have that initial intake. They're not seeing they may not be seeing their assigned therapist or the therapist they're going to be working with ongoingly at that point.
Well, and they definitely generally aren't doing any type of therapy that first appointment. Like you say, I have a lot of people that come in, families, and they say, well, I thought that we were going to be doing therapy today. And I'll say, absolutely, we're going to get there. In order to really figure out where the focus of the therapy is, we have to figure out some of the things first. And a lot of that, like you said, is administrative, the paperwork, but it's also, we do something called a biopsychosocial assessment where we get into the family history, the medical history, the prior treatment history, because we don't want to spin our wheels with the family and do something that they know isn't going to work. And we want to find out what has worked in the past, what has been beneficial to your family, what's been successful. Let's build upon that strong foundation that's already there. And sometimes I'll have people come in. One of the first questions that we go over is something called the chief complaint. And what is a chief complaint? Well, it really is. Like, what's the chief thing I'm complaining about that's creating distress in my family or in my home or in myself? And sometimes people have a very clear idea of what is causing distress or dysfunction. And sometimes they do not have a very clear idea. They say something like, well, man, it's just kind of been like this way for a long time, but I don't really know where to put my finger on it, but just this. And so what we tend to do in that situation is a lot of listening, but also we do some assessments to determine, okay, where is kind of the source of this dysfunction? Is it rooted in maybe feeling anxious or feeling worried or nervous? Is it rooted in having maybe a sense of depression? And not to put a label on someone, but to kind of figure out a roadmap for where do we want to focus our energy to find some healing. You had said earlier, therapy is not for fixing people. I could not agree more. I see a lot of times for therapy, what I see is people, families are in need of healing. They're in need of restoration. They're in need of connection. So it's not about fixing. It's, just like you go to a medical doctor because your body needs to be restored, your body needs to be healed. You come to counseling or you come to a therapist because there's something in your heart, maybe something in your mind that you need that same healing, that same restoration. Exactly. And it takes time. Just like a broken bone. It takes time to heal. And it's a process. You go in and you get the initial upfront structure to how that healing may happen, and then your body does the work on a broken bone, right? The doctor's not doing much but checking on it. You're doing most of the work. Yeah. So in therapy. So let's try it. I think this is a good place maybe to kind of pause, and in our next our next session, we'll get into, okay, now that we're getting started with therapy, what can I expect over time with therapy? So I want to say thank you for joining us on this one, and stay tuned for part 2.